So I've had a number of people ask me how I was able to buy my land and how I'm able to live here 24/7 without a car or a job. So I'll try to make this short. um, I used to live in Hollywood in LA. I was working in the film industry as a stunt woman and an aspiring actress and filmmaker, and I was also a massage therapist. And my career was going straight up. I was working in Bulgaria, working on films there, and through a set of circumstances that happened, which we'll have to go into a whole film to explain, I lost all the money I made there, and I also had my heart just shattered. And I, at the same time, went to visit a village that my friend in Bulgaria grew up in, and I was just, I want this life. It was so beautiful to me. People were growing their own food. There was fruit dripping off of the trees everywhere. There was people bringing me honey from their bees and juice from their grapes, and chicken to eat that they raised, and cheese from sheep that they raised, sheep's milk. And it reminded me of why I even got into the film industry in the first place, because I wanted to get rich and buy land and raise my son in nature and live in nature. But it didn't happen that way. I ended up just getting caught up in the rat race in LA. So when I left Bulgaria, I ended up, through a whole set of circumstances, losing all the money that I made on film, and my brand new Prius, which I had waiting for me in LA, got repoed because the person who was supposedly renting it from me and making the payments didn't do that. So I basically lost everything when I came back to LA, and that was a huge blessing, because what I found was this love that I had that I became shattered because it wasn't requited. It got me in touch with some really deep, beautiful, pure feelings. And I realized the only other place I would feel that is in nature. And I wanted that more than anything. It mattered to me more than the money, more than fame, more than any of that stuff. I just wanted to be in nature. And then I started seeing how corrupt the food system was too. So then it gave me even more of a push. Like, I just want to grow my own food. And so there was a whole journey of me going from having nothing when I came back to LA and deciding I don't want to go back to work. I don't want to go back to the rat race. And I just started riding a bicycle around and taking the subway. And I actually really enjoyed it because it slowed me down, and I'm starting to pay attention to things more and talk to people more and connect with people. And so I started off just staying at a friend's apartment in Hollywood and trying to grow stuff on the balcony. And then I manifested a situation, just out of the blue, manifested. It was pretty crazy how that happened, and that's a whole nother story. But I was just offered an opportunity to live in a room, to rent a room in a big house in Pasadena, where they wanted me to help them convert it to an urban farm. So I lived there for a short while, and we just built garden beds all over the place and did all kinds of permaculture type stuff there. And then I realized I wanted to expand, and I wanted to be able to raise chickens and goats. And so there was a whole set of circumstances where I started moving further from the city. I rented a room on a ranch, then I rented a room on another ranch, and I actually worked there in exchange for rent. And each part of the way I started learning, and as I was going, I was developing faith, because I basically was very over the way modern civilization works, because I got to the point where, like, love is the most beautiful thing there is, and that's all that matters. And I'm just going to believe in that. I'm going to have faith in the divine, because all this other stuff, I just don't care about it anymore. So it kind of gave me a lot of balls to just go for stuff. I've always had a lot of balls, but it gave me even more, because it's like, if it's not love, I just don't care anymore. Screw it, So at one of the ranches, and I had so many circumstances happen that I manifested things when I had nothing. When I moved out to the first ranch that I lived on, I had nothing. I had a bicycle. I was living on faith, and I was manifesting what I needed. I was getting small residual checks occasionally from the stunt work I was doing. But I was trying to sell my film equipment and different things, and then I hit a wall with that. And I thought my faith wasn't working anymore because suddenly I didn't have the money to pay the rent. But then I manifested something way better. And that took me to the next level. And I was at another ranch learning how to compost, learning how to grow stuff, learning about, trying to grow food where there's actually wild animals is totally different than growing food in a city. Completely different. I mean, it's a whole nother level of challenge. So after living on the last ranch I lived on, I decided I wanted my own place. And I actually literally told myself what I wanted. And within 2 hours, someone showed up at the door and we had a conversation and I manifested exactly what I wanted. So I got this property that I rented. It was barren, wilderness, desert, in an isolated canyon. And I was able to rent a couple acres in this isolated canyon, and have the freedom to just build my tiny home and grow orchards and gardens and practice all kinds of things and learn about native plants and learn about trying to grow stuff when you have wild animals around and learning about rattlesnakes. And so with that situation, I developed an insane amount of faith because I was camping out in a shipping container that was cut in half. So the whole side of it was open. It was wintertime. I didn't know anything about coyotes and mountain lions, and people were saying, oh, you're going to get your face chewed off. And, and that time of year, there were no snakes. But once the warm weather came along, I was surrounded by rattlesnakes, and I had incredible experiences that taught me to have more faith. And then we had fires coming down both sides of the canyon, or I'm saying we. At first it was just me there, and then eventually I met a friend who also wanted to live like me, and she brought her trailer down there and started living there too. But before she came, it was just me for a couple years. And I mean, there was fires that came, there were floods, there were car wrecks, people, I mean, crazy drunk people coming down there, a lot of drug addicts coming down there. There was a lot of crazy stuff that happened at this place, but every time it happened, I was developing faith because I had no other way to deal with it, and I didn't want to be anywhere else. So I just said, okay, God, I'm just going to let go and trust. And I can't tell you how many times I had to let go and trust when I thought I was going to get flooded out, or I thought I was going to get burnt out of there or whatever. And I just let go, and I just kept letting go, and everything just kept working out and getting better and better and better. And eventually I had built this beautiful paradise there. And my friend that had moved down there, her mother had seen everything that was happening. And she, I'm getting ahead of myself. So, by the time that I had really done an insane amount of work, and I had orchards and gardens growing, and it was just beautiful, and things were working, and my friend and I, we got goats. The guy who owned the property suddenly wanted more money, and he did really shady things to try and get it instead of just being mature and honest about it. So I was like, yeah, that's not going to happen. So I'm going to move. We're going to move. But we didn't have any money to move. And we started looking for properties, and I wrote down exactly what I wanted. I wanted property that had oak trees, had rocks, had resources that you could use, had water, had a nurturing private feel, a lot of trees. I mean, there was a lot of things that I wrote down that I wanted. And everywhere we looked around the area, which was closer to LA, I mean, any land like that was just astronomical in price. And we were so desperate to get out of there that we settled for a piece of sand in a desert that only cost like $6,000. It was just a piece of sand, 2 acres of sand. But that deal fell through. And I was like, yeah, of course, because we were settling. This isn't what I wanted. I wrote down what I wanted, and this isn't it. And so I was like, okay, we just got to believe. And then we saw this piece of property I'm on now online, and my friend was like, yeah, but that's too far away. And I didn't know how I could support myself being so far away from LA, because I still did occasional stunt jobs, and I had a, a massage client that I was still working on occasionally. And I was like, well, if the owner will carry the loan, let's go look at the land. And so we called, and the owner would not carry the loan. And I was like, okay. And for those that don't know what that means, it means the owner acts like the bank. You don't get a loan from a bank. The owner, you make payments to the owner of the land. So he wouldn't do that. So then I said to my friend, well, let's just go look at it anyway, because I was feeling it. So we drove all the way out here. It's a very remote location, and all the way, driving through the canyon to get here, we were screaming because it was so beautiful and so different from most of the developed areas that we'd seen. This was just more undeveloped and natural and wild and beautiful and remote. And we loved it. And so we got here and we looked at the land, and we absolutely loved it. And we made friends with the realtor, and she invited us to have dinner with her family, who we absolutely adored. And we told her, or I said, I don't know how we're going to get this land, but if it's meant to be, it'll happen. So then we go back, and she tells her mom about this, and her mom actually offers to carry the loan for us. The land was cheap. We got 20 acres for $35,000 because it was raw, undeveloped land. And her mother carried the loan. So all we had to do was make payments to her. And well, actually, half of the loan, my friend took out a credit card loan on. So her mother carried half of the loan. And then the guy who owned the property that I was living on, who I was enemies with at this point, I had tried to change my perspective, because I believe the whole love your enemy thing. I believe in that because I believe that every enemy is a reflection of some belief within me. And I need to change the belief within me so that they are no longer in my face feeling like an enemy. And I was like, so how can I love this man? How can I love this man? And the only way I could find that I could love this man is if I didn't feel like a victim. If I felt like I could do better and I could move on, then I had no reason to be mad at this man. And so that's what I did. I made the effort to really convince myself that I could do better, and let go, and decided to love this man. And then guess what happened? At the same time that my friend's mother said she would carry the loan for the property we wanted to buy, he gave me $2,000 worth of work to build his chicken coop, because I was doing building work at the time. And he loaned me $2,000 so I could move. And at the time I had a boyfriend, and he moved out with me. So he had a truck. I no longer had a truck because of other circumstances, and I was just using his. Well, then all things fell apart with him, and my friend moved on. And so I've been here alone on this land for 4 years, and I have literally just manifested everything I needed. Sometimes I get money from residual checks from stunt work, which is pretty small. Sometimes I get money from campers. Sometimes I get money from people buying my crafts and clothes and things that I make. But it all comes together, and it's all because of faith. I spend most of my time developing my faith. I'm not religious, and cool if you are. Faith works no matter what. It's all about believing. When you believe, you can manifest things. And if you believe you have to do that through your religion, cool. I don't. I manifest things. I manifest miracles. I've had just amazing things happen. Like when my boyfriend and my friend who had cars moved out of here, it was wintertime. I was alone by myself in winter with no car or job. And I'm like, how am I going to eat? How am I going to do things? I wasn't even worried because I'm so happy to be here. I had faith, and I just said, okay, something's going to happen. And sure enough, my neighbor messaged me and asked if I would take care of her dogs 3 days a week. And turns out that job paid my mortgage and paid for what I needed. and everything just worked out. And it continues to be that way. So I'm constantly teaching people to have faith, because I believe your mind is far more powerful than all the manipulations you can do in society to try to have the things you need. When you believe, you are powerful.
I love the juicy richness. I go deep, I get this. To witness the state where bliss lives. I dream the dream, so the dream